Hello everyone. My name is Rich Keener. I'm the village manager for the Village of Villa Park. And today is another one of our segments, if you will, for the upcoming COW, which is Committee of the Whole, and formal board meeting. Today we'll be talking about the board meeting for Monday, July 11th. So as I always let you know, the Committee of the Whole starts at 7:30 on Monday, and then directly after the Committee of the Whole starts the formal board agenda. So let's start. So for Monday, July 11th, for the Committee of the Whole agenda, number one is the call to order. It's the roll call. Number two is the Pledge of Allegiance. Number three is amendments of the agenda. And folks, that's the appropriate time for the President or Board of Trustees to modify the agenda for the Committee of the Whole. It could be to ask questions on a particular way an item is written. It could be to remove something, etc. So that, number three, amendments of the agenda, is the appropriate time to do that. Number four for the Committee of the Whole for Monday night is to consider an ordinance of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, amending the regulations relating to the removal of weeds. The village is considering an ordinance that amends the noxious weed definition by clarifying which milkweed plants will remain in the noxious weed category. Most milkweed plants have been shown to attract and support butterflies. In recognition of this fact, this amendment will remove most types of milkweed from the noxious plant list and allow homeowners the opportunity to plant milkweed in support of their butterfly gardens. So folks, Trustee Wagner at our last board meeting brought this up, the milkweed issue. And so milkweed tends to draw monarch butterflies. And in our current code, the milkweed is a noxious weed, if you will. In other words, it is not allowed within the borders of the Village of Villa Park. So there are four different milkweeds that we're looking at. And three milkweeds are good, and there's one bad milkweed, which we'll add to the definition of noxious. So we'll add the three good milkweeds so that you can plant in your gardens to attract butterflies, and we'll take that one bad milkweed and then add it to the noxious weed list. And that's how we'll modify the code. And then, folks, you can plant the milkweed in your gardens and your lawns to attract the butterflies. And that's something that I and staff have been talking about for several months now, because we are going to have three wildflower gardens near Ovaltine on the Prairie Path. And if we change this, maybe we'll add some milkweed so it'll attract some monarch butterflies as well as some other butterflies. So we'll see how that works out. So let's move on to number five for the Committee of the Whole for Monday, July 11th, which is to consider an ordinance of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, providing for a process to challenge water bills and water service termination. The village attorney has advised that we should codify our utility bill dispute resolution and service termination hearing processes. This ordinance will codify existing procedures into informal resolution and informal hearing processes, which makes only minor changes to our current practice. This ordinance also makes other adjustments to our code to better administer our utility billing process. The first modification is changing the 100 fee upon service termination to a delinquent service charge that is not tied to service termination. The other change is to adjust the penalties so that they are applied to the entire outstanding balance rather than the current bill. So folks, right now in our Chapter 25, which is water and wastewater services within the village code, it talks about a hearing, but doesn't really codify or really spell out in particular the process for an informal hearing or an informal resolution. And so we want to do that. And it basically, it'll state that there'll be a hearing if it's requested, and et cetera. And it'll give a notice to the individual, and then a response will be made after the hearing to alert the resident of the findings within a certain number of days, etc. And of course, the other two changes are kind of self-explaining, but currently the 5% penalty applies to the outstanding bill and doesn't apply to it going forward several months, and so that'll be the change. So anything going past the current bill, which is not paid in full, will also receive the 5% penalty because it isn't paid, and that'll be under consideration for Monday night. So moving on to number 6 is to consider an ordinance of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, amending the Villa Park Municipal Code to provide for the regulation of fireworks. The Village Board is requested to review and approve an ordinance amending the Villa Park Village Code Section 9-206 regarding fireworks. A review of the Village Code revealed that the code lacked a violation section. Staff and the village attorney drafted a new ordinance to include violations and penalties. And folks, what really happens now is we follow state code. And the state code, basically, we could pull up to a resident where the fireworks were being ignited, etc. And it really didn't provide for violations and penalties. What it did provide was arrest. And so if we did that, we'd pull up and arrest the individual igniting the fireworks and bring him back to the police station. But in effect, that would take the police officer off the beat and be tied up for a number of hours, which kind of defeats the purpose when there are a large amount of fireworks being ignited throughout the community and there's a large amount of phone calls to 911. So what we're doing is we're drafting a new ordinance to include violations and penalties. So there'll be definitions of fireworks which are banned, definitions of fireworks which are allowed, which are like maybe smoke bombs or sprinklers, things of that nature, but also penalties which will involve our adjudication process, which we have adjudication hearings in Village Hall twice a month. So if you receive a citation and you want to dispute the citation, you can come to an adjudication hearing whichever Thursday it is during the month and go before the hearing officer and explain why you don't believe you're liable. So this is kind of a new ordinance for us to list the prohibited fireworks and talk about the violations and penalties. So please, if you have some time, tune in. Just so you know, we've looked at this prior to July 4th, and it just seems that prior to July 4th and sometimes a few days after July 4th, there's still fireworks, and there's just a tremendous amount of concern about injury. In fact, on July 4th, we did have 2 severe injuries to 2 individuals. One is still in the hospital. The other one has been released, but severe facial injuries. And so I think this is appropriate time to modify that and get the new ordinance into the code and be implemented. So number 7, moving on, is consider an ordinance of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, authorizing the execution of a letter of intent to participate in the DuPage Judicial Information System, also known as DUJIS. You always have to have an acronym, in an estimated amount of approximately $439,000 for both police and fire. The DuPage County Emergency Telephone System Board, otherwise known as ETBSB, is prepared to purchase and implement an integrated justice system known as DUJIS, which will allow participating police and fire departments to exchange information with and between the county's court and correctional entities. The funds will be taken out of police account 10.520.07299 and the fire account 10.521.01280. And folks, what this is that it's the emergency management system. It's a record system. So when there's a fire call, a police call, they notate all the information into an electronic system, and then it's filed that way and transmitted to the county and to Villa Park. Our current system is approximately 11 years old. So folks, with anything, after a period of time, it becomes antiquated and things of that nature. So it's time to replace this record management system that various cities and municipalities and villages across DuPage County use to a newer, more revised, updated system. And what's happened over a period of time since the system we're on now is about 11 years old, we're having difficulty communicating through our software because the Village's software is newer than the antiquated software used in this record management system, so it's causing issues. And it's not just for Villa Park, it's across the county. So it's time to move to a revised record management system and move into current technology. And I know that police and fire will really appreciate that, and makes a lot easier recording the documents and following and communicating between departments. So moving on to number 8 is to consider a resolution of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, acknowledging receipt of the audit of motor fuel tax funds from the Illinois Department of Transportation, IDOT. The village receives allotment of motor fuel tax, MFT funds, on a monthly basis. Use of MFT funds is restricted to roadway uses and monitored for compliance by the Illinois Department of Transportation. The village is in receipt of the most recent MFT compliance review completed by IDOT for the period between January 1st, 2006 through December 31st, 2014. It is required that this information be presented to the village president and board of trustees prior to being filed as a permanent village record. So folks, what we've done is we, the village, our staff, initiated an audit of our MFT funds from 2006 through 2014, and now the audit's complete. It's been approved by IDOT, and now we want to present that audit to the village board for approval, and it then becomes part of our village record. And we initiated that audit ourselves just so we can keep caught up, because if you do it every other year or so, that's great, but you can see that we have not, and usually IDOT comes in and does that, but as I mentioned, we initiated that ourselves because we believe that IDOT is kind of falling behind. They've got many, many projects on their plate. So we initiated that, went through it, they approved it, and now it's time to put it as a public record. So number 9, moving on, is to consider a resolution of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, authorizing acceptance of a proposal from Globe Construction, Inc. of Addison, Illinois, for public sidewalk improvements at Ardmore Elementary School, and waiving the requirement of competitive bidding in the amount of $20,540.95. Staff proposes the removal and replacement of public sidewalk at Ardmore Elementary School. The village already has a contract with Globe Construction, Inc. of Addison, Illinois, for the 2016 Concrete Flat Program, also known as the 2016 Sidewalk Improvement Program. Globe Construction has submitted a proposal in the amount of $20,540.95 to complete the sidewalk improvements at Ardmore School. The proposal reflects the same unit prices as the contract for the 2016 Sidewalk Improvement Program, which was competitively bid through a joint bid process. The funds will be taken from account 64.502.10.299. And so folks, in brief, we're going to replace a large amount of sidewalk at the Ardmore School, and this will be a 50-50 process. It's what we really call this is our 50-50 sidewalk program. So of that amount, 50% will come from the Ardmore School, or District 45, if you will, and then the other 50% will come from the village. And by doing that, we'll replace quite a large amount of sidewalk in the area and make that safer for the kids going to and from school and the parents, etc. And that's something that we do on an annual basis. We do the 50-50 sidewalk replacement program, and you as residents can also participate in that. And if you're interested, please contact Public Works, and they'll come out and actually look at your sidewalk, measure. They'll put a white dot on a sidewalk if it needs to be replaced, and they'll send you a letter stating that you can participate in the program, what the cost will be, and if you're interested, then return the letter to them with a check paying for your 50%, and then they'll put it in the bid specs. And so that's kind of the program, and that's what's happening at the Ardmore School. And folks, we'll be pushing for this construction of the sidewalk to be done prior to school opening on August 17th, just a little safer that way. So number 10 for the Committee of the Whole Monday night is to consider a resolution of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, authorizing acceptance of a proposal from Arena Fence of Carroll Stream, Illinois for fence replacement at the Montessori School Children's Academy at 706 East Park Boulevard and waiving the requirement of competitive bidding in the amount of $21,475. So staff proposes the removal and installation of a new fence around the playground at the Montessori Children's Academy located at 706 East Park Boulevard. Arena Fence Company submitted the lowest proposal in the amount of $21,475 to complete the improvements. The fence costs will come from account 60.502.03299 and 60.502.10299. And folks, this really has to do with the Park Boulevard reconstruction. And the school allowed us to come on and work through them about an easement for drainage and replacement of mains, etc. And so part of this was an agreement to replace the fence that was there, and we'll be doing that through this competitive, waiving the competitive bid, but doing the improvements. And the school will be paying part of the $21,475 because they wanted more of an upgraded fence, which is fine. And so we're happy to do that. And they helped us complete the projects on Park Boulevard. And that's going to be a great street when it's completely resurfaced. And if you haven't been there, the curb and gutter is in. And hopefully within the next couple of weeks, they'll get down the rest of the roadway. Kind of was slowed down to the IDOT shutdown due to the lack of the state's budget. So that's been worked through now. And now the contractors are able to come back now that there's a stopgap budget in place at the state of Illinois, so the contractors can come back and finish these projects. So looking forward to the Park Boulevard being completed, looking forward to the fence being installed and having that completed as well. So number 11 on the agenda is to convene to the formal agenda, which again, the Committee of the Whole leads off at 7:30, and then the formal agenda follows the Committee of the Whole. So going right into the formal agenda now for Monday, July 11th. Number 1 is the Village President's Report. Folks, that's the appropriate time for Village President Bullwinkle to kind of give us a brief summary of what's been happening in her role as the Village President since the last time we met. So it could be an email, could be a question for staff, it could be a question for other trustees, etc. Number 2 is public comments on agenda items. Folks, that's the appropriate time for anyone in the audience to come to the podium, be recognized by President Bullwinkle, and kind of ask staff questions about items on the agenda. It could be on the consent agenda. It could be the couple items following the consent agenda. Number 3 is amendments of the formal agenda, and that's the appropriate time for the President or Board of Trustees to amend the formal agenda. It could be to ask to vote on something separately. It could be asked to table something along those lines. Number 4 is the consent agenda. And as I usually mention, folks, a lot of the items that we have on the Committee of the Whole, we put directly on the consent agenda because it's a first and final reading and they're non-controversial items. So if we do that, it's a non-controversial item. But if it's not on the consent agenda and it's got a separate vote, that means that it could be a controversial item and we want to have a second or even a third vote, because really you have a Committee of the Whole vote, it's a consensus vote, and then you have a first reading, and then you could have a second reading of an item. And so we do that, and we do have 2 items following the consent agenda that are going to have the final second formal reading that is on the agenda Monday night, July 11th. So let's start. So number 4 on the formal board agenda is the consent agenda. A, bill listing dated July 11, 2016 in the amount of $173,844.43. B, minutes from the Village Committee of the Whole meeting for June 27, 2016. C, minutes from the Village Formal Board meeting for June 27, 2016. D, first and final reading of an ordinance of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, amending the regulations relating to the removal of weeds. So folks, the village is considering an ordinance that amends the noxious weed definition by clarifying which milkweeds will remain in the noxious weed category. Most milkweed plants have been shown to attract and support butterflies. In recognition of this fact, this amendment will remove most types of milkweed from the noxious plant list and allow homeowners the opportunity to plant milkweed in support of their butterfly gardens. So, and folks, I discussed this on the Committee of the Whole, but this is an item that's been brought forth by Trustee Wagner. And so just as the brief summary mentions, that we'll place some milkweeds into the category where you can plant them, and there'll be one milkweed in the noxious list that really, once you plant it, it's just plant it, it kind of spreads, and that's the kind of milkweed that we do not want. E for the consent agenda for the formal board meeting for Monday night, July 11th. Is the first and final reading of an ordinance of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, amending the Villa Park Municipal Code to provide for the regulation of fireworks. The Village Board is requested to review and approve an ordinance amending the Villa Park Village Code, Section 9-206, regarding fireworks. A review of the current village code revealed that the code lacked a violation section. Staff and the village attorney drafted a new ordinance to include violations and penalties. And so folks, what this will be is there'll be a violation, so there'll be definitions of fireworks that can be used and definitions of fireworks which are prohibited. And then for penalties, there'll be citations, and if I'm not mistaken, I think the initial citation could be is $75 will be the minimum, and then it goes up to like $750, and then we'll follow the adjudication process. So moving on to F for the consent agenda for Monday night is the first and final reading of an ordinance of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, providing for a process to challenge water bills and water service termination. Our village attorney has advised that we must codify our utility billing dispute resolutions and service termination hearing processes. This ordinance will codify existing procedures into informal resolution and informal hearing processes, which makes only minor changes to our current practice. This ordinance also makes other adjustments to our code to better administer our utility billing process. The first modification is charging the $100 fee upon service termination to a delinquent service charge that is not tied to service termination. The other change is to adjust the penalties so they are applied to the entire outstanding balance rather than the current bill. So moving on to G for the consent agenda is the first and final reading of an ordinance of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, authorizing the execution of a letter of intent to participate in the DuPage Judicial Information System in an estimated amount of approximately $439,000 for both police and fire. So the DuPage County Emergency Telephone Systems Board is prepared to purchase and implement an integrated justice system known as DUJIS, which will allow participating police and fire departments to exchange information with and between the county's court and correctional entities. The funds will be taken out of police account 10.520.07.299 and fire account 10.521.01.280. And folks, with that, with this particular item, it's a record management system. Our current system is approximately 11 years old. It's time to move towards more of an updated system. And currently we're having issues communicating with the system because our software in the village is at an advanced level, much more than the current RMS or records management system being used by police and fire. So there's communication problems. And by updating to a new revised and updated department DUI or DUJIS system, it'll allow for a more seamless integration throughout DuPage County. So much more advanced system. So moving on to H is a resolution of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, acknowledging receipt of the audit of motor fuel tax funds from the Illinois Department of Transportation. The village receives allotments of motor fuel tax, MFT funds, on a monthly basis. Use of MFT funds is restricted to roadway uses and monitored for compliance by the Illinois Department of Transportation. The village is in receipt of the most recent MFT compliance review completed by IDOT for the period between January 1st, 2006 and December 31st, 2014. It is required that this information be presented to the village president and board of trustees prior to being filed as a permanent village record. So folks, we completed an audit for that period of time. IDOT has approved that audit, and now we're just going to make that village record. So moving on to I for Monday night, consent is resolution of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, authorizing acceptance of a proposal from Globe Construction, Inc. of Addison, Illinois, for public sidewalk improvements at Ardmore Elementary School and waiving the requirement of competitive bidding in the amount of $20,540.95. So staff proposes a removal and replacement of public sidewalk at Ardmore Elementary School. The village already has a contract with Globe Construction, Inc. of Addison, Illinois, for the 2016 Concrete Flat Program, also known as the 2016 Sidewalk Improvement Program, otherwise known as the 50-50 Sidewalk Program. So Globe Construction has submitted a proposal in the amount of $20,540.95 to complete the sidewalk improvements at Ardmore School. The proposal reflects the same unit prices as the contract for the 2016 Sidewalk Improvement Program, which was competitively bid through a joint bid process. The funds will be taken from account 64.502.10.299. So folks, we're going to be replacing a large amount of sidewalk near the Ardmore Elementary School. And again, that's part of the 50-50 sidewalk replacement program. And as I mentioned earlier, we're going to try to get that done before August 17th, before school starts. So the construction will be done, we'll be out of the way of the students, and it'll be a good project to get done. So J for the consent agenda for Monday night is the resolution of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, authorizing acceptance of a proposal from Area Fence of Carroll Stream, Illinois, for fence replacement at the Montessori Children's Academy located at 706 East Park Boulevard, and waiving the requirement of competitive bidding in the amount of $21,475. So staff proposes a removal and installation of a new fence around the playground at the Montessori Children's Academy located at 706 East Park Boulevard. Arena Fence Company submitted the lowest proposal in the amount of $21,475 to complete the improvements. The fence cost will come from account 60.502.03.299 and 60.502.10.299. And folks, as I explained during the Committee of the Whole, Montessori Children's Academy assisted the village with an easement allowing us to replace some mains within that area for drainage, water, sewer, etc., things of that nature. And replacement of the fence was the agreement. And so we'll do this project, get that completed along with Park Boulevard, and it'll be great to wrap up those improvements in that area. So moving on to number 5. So the consent is going to be A through J, and then number 5, as I talked about earlier, is going to be a second reading. So number 5 for the formal board meeting for Monday, July 11th is the second reading of an ordinance of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, annexing territory to the village, and it's OS 708 Villa Avenue and OS 705 Euclid Avenue. The village is seeking approval of a actually this is the second reading of an annexation ordinance for OS 708 Villa Avenue and OS 705 Euclid Avenue. These two parcels are completely surrounded by the Village of Villa Park. This annexation also achieves a goal of the strategic plan to annex areas that are surrounded by the village. Staff believes this annexation will improve emergency services for these parcels and recommends approval of the annexation ordinance. And folks, number 6 is almost the same as number 5. It's just a different piece of territory. So number 6 on the formal agenda for Monday night is a second reading of an ordinance of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, annexing territory to the village. So it's OS 461 Ardmore, so it's South 461 South Ardmore. The village is seeking approval of the second reading of an annexation ordinance for OS 461 Ardmore Avenue. The 2 parcels associated with this address are completely surrounded by the Village of Villa Park. This annexation also achieves a goal of the strategic plan to annex areas that are surrounded by the village. Staff believes this annexation will improve emergency services for this parcel and recommends approval of the annexation ordinance. So that concludes those 2 items for the annexation. Number 7 is the resolution of the Village of Villa Park, DuPage County, Illinois, approving the manager's contract. So my contract will be on the agenda for Monday night and for a discussion. So moving on to number 8 is the public comments on non-agenda items. So number 8, that would be the appropriate time for folks in the audience to come to the dais and be recognized by President Bowinkle to address staff or the President Board of Trustees with questions about, could be anything from the amount of rainfall, could be parking on various streets, questions for staff or the President of Board of Trustees having to do with things not on the agenda. So number 9, the Village Clerk's report, and that's the appropriate time for Village Clerk Kornecki to give us a brief summary of what's been happening in her role as clerk since the last time we met. Number 10 is the Village Trustees report, and that's the appropriate time for each trustee to kind of give a summary to you and folks in the audience, if you will, of what's been transpiring in their role as village trustees since the last time we met. And number 11 is the village manager's report, and that's the appropriate time for myself to kind of give you a summary of what's been happening in my role as manager since the last time we met. And it could be many different things. It could be a quick discussion about the fireworks or the milkweed, or if we had any drainage issues during a rainfall. I kind of like to bring certain things up like that to kind of inform all of you during my couple of minutes. Number 12 on the formal agenda for Monday night is the village attorney's report, and that's the appropriate time for village attorney or Benninger to kind of give us a brief summary of what's been happening in their role as village attorney since the last time we met. And that could involve the state's budget reaching the stopgap budget or any kind of legislation that's under consideration right now. Moving on to 13, number 13 is the adjournment. So folks, we kind of have a good agenda for Monday night. Got some sidewalk improvements, we've got a fence, we've got my contract, we've got some annexation, so got all kinds of different things for Monday night, July 11th. So hope you're using the Prairie Path. The VFW still has Friday night fish fries. We still have the Thursday night wing nights. Still a tremendous amount of things happening in our communities. So in the month of July, Kiwanis has their concerts on Wednesday nights at the gazebo. In the month of August, the village, in coordination with some other entities, is going to have concerts on Thursday nights at the Cortese Veterans Memorial Park and the Depot. So look forward to seeing you there or seeing you on the Prairie Path. So again, my name is Rich Keener. I'm your village manager. It's my honor. And I hope to see you at Monday night's board meeting. Take care.